I would like to open this event by recognizing that McGill University is on land which long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous people whose presence have enriched this territory on which peoples of the world now gather. Avant de donner le coup d'envoi à cet événement, permettez-moi de souligner que l'Université McGill est située sur un territoire qui a longtemps été un lieu de rencontre et d'échange pour les peuples autochtones, notamment pour les nations Haudenosaunee et Anishinaabe. Nous saluons et remercions les divers peuples autochtones qui ont enrichi de leur présence ce territoire, lequel accueille aujourd'hui des gens de partout dans le monde.
Bonjour, au nom de tous les membres de l'Association des femmes diplômées de l'Université McGill, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à cet événement. Good day. Welcome, everyone. On behalf, my name is Eleni Bakopanos, and I'm the honorary president and past president of the McGill Women's Alumni Association. And I'm your host for this year's bicentennial at-home homecoming event hosted by the MWAA. This year's homecoming is very special to us. We are celebrating McGill's 200th anniversary, but we're also celebrating the 130th anniversary of our association. And this launches McGill's third century together. In addition, this, as I said, it's a tribute to all our alumni and friends who stay connected and committed to their classmates, their faculties, and of course, our alma mater, McGill University. So wherever you are, and I know we have people from all over the world who are joining us today, I'm glad you are staying safe and joining us for this year's lecture. I'd like to kick off this exciting event with some words about the McGill Women's Alumni Association. As you likely know, every woman who has graduated from McGill is automatically a member of the association. What began as a group of women in 1889 has since grown to include thousands of McGill graduates as members. And if you are not a member, please join us. Since inception, our mission has remained simple and steadfast to advance the leadership potential of McGill's female graduates. Through philanthropy, events, and activism, the MWAA promotes the positive impact of alumni have on the university community. We invest in the next generation of leaders by supporting their educational ambitions and activities of the women who will join our ranks upon graduation. We also introduced this year, I'm very proud to say, a mentor program. And if anyone is interested, they can also get in touch with us. And we are proud to be part of the important tradition of resistance against oppression and injustice, advocating for equal rights on campus and across Canada. It is also a special year for our association, as I said, it's the 130th anniversary. In honor of this milestone of the MWAA, and as a nod to our long-standing tradition of supporting academic excellence, we are together going to raise $130,000 for scholarships benefiting female graduates from the STEM fields. Join us in celebrating 130 years of female-led excellence at McGill and help us lift our future female leaders in STEM by making a gift today. You can do that online to the Scholarship Endowment Fund under the 130th anniversary. Maintenant, j'ai le plaisir de présenter notre principale et vice-chancelier, Suzanne Fortier. It is now my pleasure to introduce via video, the McGill Principal and Vice Chancellor, Suzanne Fortier, to say a few words to us.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this virtual event hosted by the McGill Women's Alumnae Association. En tant que diplômée de McGill, je suis très fière d'être membre de l'Association des femmes diplômées de McGill. This group has a fascinating history that deserves to be celebrated. 130 years ago, the university's first 8 female graduates came together to establish a group dedicated to helping McGill women succeed. These women were trailblazers. Since then, the MWAA has been proudly passing the torch of female empowerment from generation to generation. It is inspiring to see that 130 years later, the MWAA continues to thrive and carry on this tradition of women supporting women. One of the people who believe wholeheartedly in this tradition was Sylvia Piggott, a beloved member of the MWAA who sadly passed away this spring. I would like to take a moment to pay tribute to Sylvia's outstanding contributions to her alma mater and her community. A two-time McGill graduate, Sylvia served on the MWAA Board of Directors for well over 30 years, and her leadership had a major impact on the McGill community. Among other initiatives, she chaired the annual Muriel V. Roscoe Lecture and launched the Toolbox series to prepare young alumni for success in the workforce. Sylvia was extremely generous with her time and expertise. She served as president of many organizations, both in Montreal and internationally. As the co-founder and president of the Black Academic Scholarship Fund, she helped reduce systemic barriers to higher education among Montreal's Black youth. Sylvia was a wonderful role model and community leader whose dedication to giving back will never be forgotten. I want also to highlight another important MWAA tradition, philanthropy. For over 85 years, the association has been providing financial support to female students at McGill through scholarships and awards. In honor of its 130th anniversary, the MWAA has launched a fundraising campaign to create a new scholarship for female students entering science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs at McGill. The underrepresentation of women in these fields continues to be a problem around the world. The MWAA 130th Anniversary Scholarship will help address this issue at McGill by fostering a more welcoming and supporting atmosphere for young women in STEM fields, including students facing systemic barriers in accessing education. I'm so grateful for the entire MWAA board for spearheading this important initiative. In particular, I would like to thank Anelia Wright and Susan Sharnotsky for their outstanding work in leading the fundraising campaign. I can't wait to see the impact this scholarship will have on our students and our community at large for generations to come. Thank you to everyone for participating today, and please enjoy the event. Merci et bonne retrouvailles à tous et à toutes.
Merci beaucoup, Principal Fortier. An excellent message. So, we have a very exciting lineup today. Two amazing trailblazers, as the principal said, who are with us today. They will make a short 10-minute speech each. Meantime, please use the chat function to be able to send in your questions. We will have a Q&A after their speeches and after we've had a short exchange among the three of us. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you today the first speaker, Dr. Helen Christodoulou. Helen brings over 38 years of experience in the field of bridges and major bridge structures across Canada and the US in the conceptualization, design, rehabilitation, and supervision of major bridge projects, including superstructure and infrastructure design. She has worked with engineering firms and major construction entities in the construction industry and government and municipal authorities. She's considered a leading court expert in the field of forensic analysis of bridge and large infrastructure projects. Helen graduated in civil engineering with graduate degrees. She holds a PhD in civil engineering with specialization in bridges, degrees in civil and common law, and holds a master's in business administration from McGill. She participated in the writing and presentation of engineering articles, taught engineering courses, participated in numerous conferences on law and engineering. I know she has also mentored a lot of students. She is a member of several technical and industry committees and is responsible for setting industry standards and updating of codes used for design. She is the National Director of Steel Market and Industry Development for the Canadian Steel Construction Institute, a technical organization for the steel construction industry in Canada. Steel, the voice of steel construction industry in Canada in the areas of innovation, leadership, steel design, and construction. She also received the 130th Anniversary Medal of the Senate of Canada in recognition for her invaluable service to the nation by Senator Rosa Galvez. Please welcome Dr. Helen Christodoulou.
Thank you very much, Eleni. That was wonderful. I really am honored and I'm so happy to participate in this event. I hold it to the greatest esteem, the work that the organization does. And I have great love for all the fellow alumni. I'm part of many faculties. You know, I think if I'm going to start off with one message, I was going to say that education is really, or should really be, the facilitator to our professional journey. You know, today I was asked whether I'm going to put up a PowerPoint presentation or anything. And I felt, you know, that the most that I could give is a heartfelt explanation of a little bit of my journey and maybe some insights and some advice that I may have for participants. We have to have a sort of a, now virtual, right? But a heart-to-heart discussion. I think that will be more benefit to all. I feel, you know, excited, and I've had a fulfilling career. So, you know, many call me a trailblazer, and you know, it's an honor to feel that they see me that way, because I'm telling you, it's been a long journey. And you know, we say sometimes that the ceiling has been broken. Well, you know, I don't know if the ceiling has been broken. We're trying to break the ceiling, but I don't know if the ceiling has been broken. But just to give you a little bit of my background, you know, when I went into engineering, I started engineering, we were 400 applicants in the field, right? So there were about 10 women. By the end of, I'm talking about my bachelor's degree, by the end, I think there were 85 that graduated and only 2 were women. And to be fair, the one of the 2 women changed her career right after graduation. So I went into the engineering field, but I was passionate. I loved it. But I'll tell you, I saw the challenges, but while I was seeing the challenges, I had also made every effort. I believe that I wanted to be respected in the field. It was very tough for women, trust me. I mean, we've come a long way. We haven't broken all the ceilings, but we've come a long way. And in my opinion, it was important that I had to make my mark. And one way to do it was to pursue higher education, specialized, because it was important, I felt, because we had these challenges, that I had to make myself more credible, more relevant, and be more respected as an authority in the field. So I wanted to ensure that if one way, at least that was my contention, that if I was going to be treated equal, if I was going to be treated with seriousness, I had to find a way to facilitate this. So it was tough for women, not only for engineering, but especially bridge engineering, and especially in the steel industry was like, you know. So just to give you a little bit of history, you know, I worked for Canadian Pacific after I did my PhD, worked for Canadian Pacific, and I was so blessed to start working with such a good company. They really took to heart my capabilities and my love for the bridge industry. So I was catapulted quite quickly to be responsible for bridge section. We had 45 engineers working, no women, FYI, no women. So it was interesting. I learned a lot. I managed to get a good grip of the steel industry. And then, you know, in the early mid-90s, I think they were moving to Calgary. And of course, you know, we had such a great rapport. They offered the moon and the sun, but I was not going to go to Calgary. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to take this opportunity. And this is when I went back with a 2-year-old, by the way, and to pursue my law degree. So it was funny because, I say 2-year-old, because at times I had to bring him home if I had nobody to sit with him. And, people were like, oh, Georgie's here. It was really nice to see. So he went through my journey with me. And in fact, he continued my journey, because when he went to med school and I was waiting downtown to pick him up late, I did my MBA. And the reason I did my MBA started off when I was at CP, because I found that there was a disconnect between the law department and the engineering, the language. I thought I was strategically always thinking. And I figured with the MBA would actually validate. It was either that I was completely nuts or some of my strategic thinking would be validated. And I love that experience. It was absolutely amazing to see the gamut of people in the age group that participated. So to me, the trick was to transform any challenges I had into opportunities. Steel was tough, but I thought that was tougher. So I think, if I had to go back and say which was my life-changing moment, was when I had catapulted up in CP at a position and, young woman holding a lot of binders, walking down the hallway. I was heading a meeting, but it wasn't announced that I was heading the department yet. And the people that were coming to that meeting, heading down the corridor, saw me and they said, could you bring us 2 coffees? We have a meeting with the person responsible. I go, no problem, So I asked my secretary then, I go, can I have the coffee? She says, I will bring them. I go, no, you don't understand. I have to bring those coffees. So when I took them back, to make a long story short, there were some jaws dropping. And my message to them was, never do this to a fellow professional, not a fellow woman, but a fellow professional. There is no women engineers and men engineers. They are professionals. So I figured that if anyone, and the best advice that I could give it, you should always reflect, what is our legacy? And I've said this over and over and over. I said, you know what, when we use the word bold, and we've used it so many times, it's transcended through the years as a word, bold, bold, bold. But bold has a tremendous impact, because it has a tremendous impact on women's lives, on our efforts, on our advancements. And when we're bold, I think we bring respect, equality, and justice to our direction. So education to me, and I think to many, should be very important, because being part of the engineering profession, it proved how even more important it is. So to me, my vision and my mission was to really try to lead, but provide continuous support to young women engineers in the steel industry and in the construction sector. I even teach legal issues in construction. The first lesson that I gave is like, here, you're all professionals. There's no female students or male students. We're all professionals, and we're all going to learn together. And I've mentored hundreds of them. And the important thing is that we have to pass this knowledge down. So if I have to bring it down to what advice would I give in all my years as an engineer, I have witnessed firsthand that women can succeed. We as women, as professionals, have a choice on how we take that active role to make it happen, right? I believe that our true dignified success, if that's what you want to call it, is with credibility. To me, was very important. Integrity, even more important, and merit. No lies, no backstacking, no hypocrisy against fellow women professionals. We just have to make the right choices, because those are the choices that will be judged with. So the objective, I believe, for professionals, not only women, is we have to try and raise that level of excellence in the workforce, that collaboration, I would say, and cooperation in the workforce, and to lead existing initiatives all together. Because you have to be willing to put yourself, I feel, and speak out in a crowd. You have to be bold. You have to say your opinion. You have to be ready, but you got to be prepared and back up what you're going to say, right? You don't have to feel, especially as women professionals, that you're in a secondary status. You just have to set the example, because everybody will follow you through. So people, I think, women especially, choose to be bold. And when they do, they can be inspiring, because they get big things accomplished. They instigate a lot of growth. They instigate a lot of progress. And that effect has a movement, not only for themselves, but I think everybody around them, they set the examples. And I find very important, if we're going to be credible and use, our education and our experience and our expertise, whatever you want to call it, and the list goes on, we have to own our flaws and strengths and learn from them. We have to, I think, as women, especially keep clear priorities and speak up. And important for McGill and the efforts that you're making is we have to pair our action with knowledge. But at the same time, there's value in failure. There's value in challenges. But we have to make, I think, as a learning skill, is to make the most of small wins. Because when you make the most of small wins, you actually build momentum. It's like a series, the domino effect, right? A series of actions that work together, that team together. And then with that, you gather confidence, you gather power, you gather speed in doing things. So you have sort of that sense of energy that drives towards you and builds momentum. And that carries you forward, that carries you more efficient. But the key thing is, as we do it as women, and because we're trying to break that ceiling more and more and more, we have to be diligent, we have to be strategic, we have to be insistent, and we have to be inspiring, because we have to pull other women along with us. So when I've taught and mentored, as I mentioned, Eleni, and guided hundreds of young women to find that the professional path, employment opportunities, research, whatever, one of the messages that I pass is, you are the bold leaders of tomorrow. You have to find a way, some minimal or maximal way, that you be a role model or a mentor to somebody else, because you have a professional responsibility, irrespective of the field. And Sheila is a different field, right? We continue to play important roles, and we have a responsibility to move in the right direction. So I just want to finish. I don't want to bore everybody, but I want to finish in saying that self-doubt should not be in our vocabulary as women. We are seekers of solutions to overcome any challenges, and education, in my view, should dispel these myths and should be the facilitators to our professional journey.
Thank you so much, Helen, talking about your personal journey and all the challenges that you faced. I want to remind everybody that they should address their questions to Kay Das in the chat room. We will be looking at the questions. Hopefully we can get to all the questions. I'll do my best. And I'm sorry I had to keep the speakers to 10 minutes. It's hard when you've got a wealth of information and a wealth of experiences to share with everybody. But I hope some of the questions that you're going to ask are also going to bring that out. So thank you very much. Merci.
A pleasure.
Hélène, c'est excellent. Et, comme toujours, t'es souriante, t'es inspirante, et t'es motivante. Merci.
Merci, un plaisir. Merci.
So I'd like now to introduce our next speaker, who I know will also inspire you and motivate you. Dr. Sheila Wang. Sheila is a renowned clinician-scientist and recipient of the 2021 Governor General's Innovation Award, 2019 CMA Young Leader Award, the 2018 Quebec Excelsior Award, and the 2019 Jour l'Innovation Award. She is co-founder and chief medical officer of Swift Medical, the global leader in digital wound technology, adopted by over 4,000 healthcare organizations, and used to monitor over 450,000 patients each month, especially in remote communities, I understand, and the indigenous communities. Bravo, Dr. Wang. Dr. Wang completed her PhD and MD at the University of Toronto and was awarded a Royal Society International Newton Fellowship to conduct translational research at the University of Oxford, no less, where she patented a novel technology for drug screening. She is currently completing her residence in dermatology at McGill University. This year, Dr. Wang, besides everything else that she has been doing, and besides, I want to thank her actually for being one of the healthcare workers during this awful pandemic. And I think we can all applaud all the heroes and heroines who have taken care of all those who have succumbed under this pandemic, and who have also gotten back their health thanks to Sheila and others. And her team this year was awarded $2.5 million by the federally funded Digital Technology Supercluster to launch Telewound Care Canada, a national coalition of leading industry, healthcare, and academic partners dedicated to scaling an innovative artificial intelligence-powered solution that enables highly vulnerable wound patients to access immediate, remote wound care while in their homes and communities during COVID-19 and beyond. And as I said again, thank you, Sheila, for everything you are doing for all of us and all those patients. So please welcome Dr. Sheila Wang. Sheila?
Thank you so much, Eleni, for that introduction. Thank you, Eleni, really for inviting me to participate today. I feel so fortunate to be here with you and Helen and the participants today, because I think what we're doing now through the sharing of our stories with this goal of learning from each other about how to overcome the challenges for women in STEM, we're creating a community together, and that's really important. And we've already taken really the first step to overcome these barriers, many of them described by Helen already, by supporting each other in forums such as this and through associations like the McGill's Women Alumni Association. So thank you. So I'll start by talking a little bit about myself. My background, as you mentioned, Eleni, is in chemistry. I did my PhD at U of T and my postdoctoral fellowship in physical chemistry at Oxford. What you'll see in chemistry is actually, when I was there, was that 50%, half of all the chemistry PhDs are women. And then you see this drastic decline from 40% women in chemistry to 6% female chemistry professors. And that's actually steeper than in other disciplines, including physics and engineering. So the question is why? I mean, what's happening here? And they did a study by the Royal Society of Chemistry back in 2008, and they surveyed these women doing their PhDs, and they brought up a number of factors. One of them was they talked about how the laboratory research in chemistry was too adversarial, they said. Chemistry sometimes has this reputation of being very cutthroat compared to biology or physics. There tends to be sometimes, some people describe it as a macho culture, in which basically getting to the finish line is more important than how you got there. So let me tell you about my experience, okay? My experience, I was very fortunate. I worked for two incredibly brilliant female professors in chemistry, the late Professor Deborah Zamble, who I did my PhD with, and Professor Dame Carol Robinson, who I did my postdoc work. And Carol is, for many women, a model and a mentor. She was the first chemistry professor in both the universities of Cambridge and Oxford, if you can imagine. She took, during her career, an 8-year break to have 3 children. And her colleagues and everyone in the field says, you're not going to be able to come back to academia. You're not going to be able to come back to science after that. And she did, and she became a world leader in our field in mass spectrometry. And then even given her success, there was still all of this negative stereotypes about women. For example, when she won this important chemistry award, it was called the Rosalind Franklin Award back in 2004, and it came with this significant sum of money. And in the local newspaper, what they said was, that's a lot of money to be spent on shoes. Or mother wins great science prize. This woman wins top science prize in our community. And that was the way they described it. And that kind of, patronizing cultural stereotypes, that can deter a lot of women, right? I mean, it was sad and disheartening to see things like headlines such as Oxford housewife wins Nobel, or one giant leap for womankind and Israel. And this is describing the Nobel laureates, Dorothy Hodgkin and Ada Yoneth, respectively. So, these are the things that you see. So we must do, I think, more, right, to support female colleagues in STEM, but you have to speak out. You have to speak out about these injustices. You have to speak out about prejudice, and don't stay quiet. and encourage, like as Helen mentioned, encourage our colleagues to aspire to these demanding roles. Carol, often talked to the fellows and talked to those of us in her lab and encouraged us to pursue academic positions and awards because she felt like having women leaders like herself in academia would change this culture. So my first advice or something to say about what I've learned is that mentorship is so important. And I know Helen is a mentor to all of these women, and it's such a great thing to do because it has such impact. I want to confess that in this kind of intimate meeting of so many women, that I almost didn't even apply, for Carol's group. I was initially quite intimidated, and I just assumed I would not be competitive for the Royal Society postdoctoral, which I did get in the end. And it was Deborah, my PhD supervisor, who said to me, and I actually printed it and pasted it onto my wall. In any given moment, we have two options: either to step forward into growth or to step back into safety. And I kind of live by that. And that applies to the work and my experiences in science and chemistry and in medicine and becoming an entrepreneur, which I'm going to talk about as well. Okay. So don't shy away. Don't shy away. Okay. Don't shy away before even trying. Don't be afraid of failure, as Helen also brought up. And I want to talk more about failure too, because it's such an important lesson that I want to share with you. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of trying. Take the risks. I took a risk at that time because I was really switching from biological chemistry to physical chemistry, but also I didn't have much background, to be honest, in the field that I was applying for in mass spectrometry. And I was applying to a lab that was world renowned in this field. And, I had such a great experience, a life-changing experience during that time. The other thing is to talk about the biases, because I talk about how I didn't feel comfortable even applying. So there are these biases, often unconscious. And I feel that these biases, they really limit women's, progress. So we have to actively reject these stereotypes, be aware of imposter syndrome. I know all of you can find examples in your life of people who inspire you. Okay. Both my grandmothers were immigrants to Canada and they brought their families here. And for me, they really represent strength and resilience. And I have two young children, 2 and 4, who have kindly given me this virus that I currently have from daycare. And I daily turn to my mother, who is really my personal example of smart, loving, working mom, because I really believe that behind every child, every person who believes in themselves is a mom who believes in them first. And I want to talk about mentors and supervisors briefly, just to say that not every supervisor is going to be a positive mentor. Okay. I have worked with some great supervisors and they're not all women. And I've worked with bad ones. And when you have a bad supervisor, these situations can be highly stressful. They can be personally demoralizing, but you learn from them. You learn how to survive a difficult working environment. You learn how not to lead. The other thing is that the importance of education, as Helen talked about, and having this growth mindset, which is so important, especially in entrepreneurship. Education, as Helen said, it builds your foundation, but it's not the certificate at the end. It's not these tests that you have to pass. It's the experience. It's the acquired wisdom. It's this dogged tenacity to learn and learning how to learn and how to ask the right questions. As Eleni mentioned, my company is a global leader in digital technology wound care. And a lot of the times people ask, how did that happen? And it really, I think part of its success comes down to asking the right questions. But how do you ask the right questions? How do you know what is the right problem to address? And there's another saying that I really like relative to my field in dermatology. This dermatopathologist, Dr. Rahindra Singh, says, the eyes cannot see what the mind does not know. So it just means that if you are not learning, you're not growing, you're not going to hit upon those questions. You're not going to see those questions. Lastly, I want to say a few words about teamwork because it's so important. You know, another question I often get asked, and I may be preempting some of the Q&A questions, but how do you manage residency, medical residency, having young children, having a company, doing the research? The answer is I don't. Okay, I don't. I don't claim to be successful at all three things, but whatever success I've had, I owe to teamwork. Okay, I did not do this alone. Okay, firstly, teamwork with my husband. Okay, Dr. Young Hen Au, who takes on the lion's share of our child's care. And that's the truth. In fact, I wanted today to share some pictures of my kids because they're just so damn cute. But also to show that actually,
please do.
Yeah, I'm not in them. They're all with my husband mostly. And that's the truth about that. And my mother has come to help us as well. And I don't really know how I could do any of this without them. And then there's teamwork with my McGill and my Swift teams. You know, one of my close friends, Rob, he often says to me, Sheila, teamwork makes the dream work all the time. So, I mean, I love that saying. So find your team, find your mentors, find the supporters who will help move you forward. Because, you know, sometimes you have to accept help when it's offered. This creates capacity in your life, and be courageous. Ask for help when you need it. Final point to all our participants today. I want to say, you are not alone. We are in this together. If anything, this pandemic and climate change has taught us is that we are in this together. So when we come together in forums like this, when we learn from each other, when we support each other in our professional, in our personal growth, we will overcome the barriers that face women in STEM and beyond. And honestly, I think our daughters and our granddaughters deserve nothing less. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sheila. That was amazing and a great, great closing. And again, as I said, it was the perfect way to close. We are in this all together. And that's why we're here together.
Absolutely.
So if I can, merci. C'était excellent. And I hope that there will be questions coming from our participants. I want to take a few common threads that both of you and Helen have included in your journey to today, to where you are today in your professional life and your personal life. And I like the way you put it out there, that it takes teamwork both on a personal level and on a professional level, because I lived it also personally with 2 young children in politics, with a husband who took over the greater burden of raising my 1.5 and 3.5. So I can relate to that. And Helen, as she said earlier, she took her son with her when she was continuing her education. But I think some things that are common threads: support. That's what teamwork is about, but it's also support with at every stage in one's growth, professionally and personally. Mentorship, always been important for me. It has been important for you and for Helen. Do not be intimidated. I love using the 3 ABCs when I also mentor young women. And you talked about being authentic, being yourself. So you have to be authentic. You have to be bold. You both talked about being fearless and not letting your fear overcome the challenges that you are facing. So be bold, do not be fearful. And I think a third point that you both have shown today in your speech is compassion. You have to have compassion in everything you do, and you have to have compassion first for yourself. Do not let all your trials and tribulations or your failures define you. Quite the opposite. Learn from them. So I think there's a common thread there. But I thought, I don't see any questions. But
could I qualify something, Eleni?
Sure, you can.
You know,
yes,
because I think Sheila brought a good point up. But I, you know, and again, the fields are different. So I'm going to qualify it on my side, right? You know, sometimes I say, even in lectures and I've presented at many conferences, I say sometimes teamwork is overrated. And I'll explain what I mean, right? Teamwork works amazing when there's a synergy of the purpose of what everybody's achieving, and that everybody feels secure with everybody else towards a goal, right? I have found, at least in my profession, and this is, I think, a caution to many of the younger professionals, is that teamwork is great, but you should go in it with wide open eyes, because at times, part of a team, you may put all your energy and work to the maximum. And then at the end, if you haven't properly strategized, if you haven't properly evaluated, if you haven't properly found out that synergy, I'm talking about the team, you could be stuck with a rotten egg at the end. I'm just saying that sometimes in the real world, in the business world, when ambition, at least ambition, warrants to be watched, because sometimes it trumps that teamwork, altruistic type of behavior.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah.
Sheila, I wanted to go back to the approach that you've had, which has been really a holistic approach to what you do. In other words, you have innovation, you have research, and you have patient care. Is that something that has more to do in terms of your generation, in terms of your healthcare field, than it used to have, let's say, in 10 years ago or 20 years ago? I'd like to say 20 years ago instead of 10 years. I see more and more a holistic approach to healthcare and also artificial intelligence. So do you see that more in terms of attracting more women because of the holistic approach now to patient healthcare?
I mean, I agree with you, Eleni. I think that we are going to see more of those two aspects in medicine and in healthcare. I think I'd like to think that in general, that as we're taught, especially when I was in medical school, that, having an understanding of the patient, of the whole patient, is more important than the disease itself. So I'd like to think that this has always been the core of medicine, and that as we move forward, that's going to be always important for us when we're practicing.
Do you feel that more attracts women because of that approach? That women tend to be more caregivers in general, like your mother and your grandmother, like you said, and that my parents were. So I think it does tend to attract women medicine because of the compassion. I mean, we're generalizing, of course, here because there are many men, Helen's son, for one. I don't want to include them, but I think there is, because of the new approach, I think more women are attracted. I mean, the numbers of women now in medicine at McGill is even higher, I think, than men.
That's correct.
Even though it's a tougher profession, especially under a pandemic, as we said earlier. So that type of approach, I think, is more relevant. Helen, I have a question for you, which will be fun. What was your first thought? What was your first thought when you climbed up on your first bridge? Because as you know, I'm afraid of heights and I would have never been able to do that. But what was your first feeling or thought as you stood? I don't know, what was the highest bridge you ever stood on while it was being built with your hard hat?
It was a 150-foot bridge, at least 200, extremely high. And you know what? I thought I was the top of the world. I was a little monkey. But related to that, I'm going to give you a funny story. When I was training an engineer and he saw me, because, CP had divisions, right? So I had to travel the country. And then I was in British Columbia, very high bridge. So I was going to train him. And he looked at me, and ladies, I got the eye roll. Oh my God, like she's going to. So, it's funny because at that time, we didn't even have the safety gear that we're using now, like little monkeys. So I went on the first set of bracings and I'm walking through. To me, it was like, easy. I felt I loved it. And then he looked at it, he goes, I can't do this. I go, what? A woman could do this and you can't do this? We have to take the moments to make a little point, right? I loved it. To me, it was a thrill. Bridge climbing, bridge inspecting was like my middle name. It's okay, little monkey.
I have a question actually for Sheila. Can you address the question of growing professionally with having a physical handicap? And it sort of ties into the next question also about how do you encourage your daughters, and you can both answer the question because you've done a lot of mentoring, even though you have a son, Helen, to higher education in STEM. Do you want to begin, Sheila, maybe with the handicap?
Yeah. I mean, that might even relate in a way to your about AI coming in.
Yes.
which it is going to more and more so in medicine. And actually, the Royal College is looking into how we incorporate whether this should become a part of our learning, part of one of our skills that we should be comfortable with, artificial learning, because it's just going to become more and more play a bigger role in medicine. And this may, in some ways compensate for those who may have physical handicaps, having that type of technology that supports us. So, again, I know this is a very public forum, but I mean, I'm happy to share personal things as well. I've actually lost a good deal of hearing on one side of mine. Oh. And so due to an infection I had when I was much younger. And so, it impacts things. I remember in medical school, we had exams where a timer would go off and I didn't hear the timer and I'd still be going. Wow. Yeah. And then people talk about that. So I think you have to talk to people about, there's stigmatism around that and how we overcome those challenges and how we have the medical or whether the school or whatever the learning environment for any person support them. Because we shouldn't let these things limit us, but we should be able to address them and how to overcome them as well.
And McGill, may I add, does provide a lot of support to students in any field who have certain handicaps. It should not be a barrier to a higher education. I think we move beyond that in the present. Helen, did you want to add anything? Because we're going to have, I can't believe the time is flying by.
I'm going to have a very simple, I'm
Go
going to have a very simple answer. Sheila, you better answer it in terms of medically, but I'm going to have more philosophical answer in the sense that intelligence has nothing to do with physical ability. It has with mental capability.
Absolutely.
And in this day and age, when we have in the mass media, in every large company, we're always extremely proud of some of the accomplishments, including, a no driver car, right? It's inexcusable that we will not be able, that we cannot advance in such a way to allow everybody equal opportunity to exercise their mental abilities. You cannot be the same way that female gender are stopped because of, like you said, stigma, sexism, whatever, okay? The other way, it's the same thing in terms of that type of innovation. We should be able to have a level playing field for everyone to be given the same opportunity to advance, given that they in areas that they can with their physical ability maybe would limit them in some others. But having said that, one is not related to another. And McGill proudly has done maximum to accommodate, and that is amazing. And I'm very proud to be an alumni of McGill.
This is maybe thank you, Helen. This may be a difficult question because we've seen a lot in terms of discrimination, harassment, microaggressions, and blatant discrimination. This came from the chat room. What role do men have in terms of also being able to help you circum some of these issues in the workplace? Obviously, we have to work with men. Obviously, not every man is an aggressor. Let's make that clear. No one misunderstand anything we're saying. But how did you overcome? Did you ever face that type of harassment or discrimination because of your sex? And we'll have to keep it very short. We have 2 minutes left, and I apologize because there are so many questions now coming in as we're getting to the end. So why don't I begin with Helen? Did you face discrimination and how did you deal with it?
Absolutely. I developed skin and I was tough. And I could find one thing to say that discrimination is just a set of in your mindset. People have daughters, people have nieces, people have daughters-in-law. It's a matter of looking at the individuals for their merit and erasing the fact there's no female, there's no male. It's just to ensure that it's a matter of culture, it's a matter of education. And I think it's not a matter of what do we have to do. It's a role that you already have. And I think it has to be exercised better because it's where we are. We're 2021. And I think we have to make an example to prove that, we really are living with the times.
Sheila?
I agree with Helen. We have experienced, I think, both of us, those types of comments, types of, unfortunately, in some types abuse. And I really feel like, honestly, I'll be honest, in the past, I may not have always had the courage to speak up about it, but it's really actually having my daughter now where I think no, I don't want that ever to be said to her or to anyone else again. And so I do think it's our responsibility to speak up. And I think it's important to point it out if the aggressor or the person who said it, even if it was like thought, to be, not intentional, to speak up, to make it very clear how unacceptable that is and how you don't want that to be done to anyone else. And so, and I think that by pointing it out to men and how we raise our sons, because both Helen and I both have sons, hopefully that'll change.
I have a daughter too. She's my daughter-in-law, but she's a daughter too.
And then we have.
I think it's important what you said, Sheila. Yeah. Stand up and speak up. I think the Me Too movement proved that if you speak up, you will get support for whatever you're going through. And I think a lot of the men also are supportive. Don't feel that you always have to talk to a female. There are males within your team and within your environment that are very supportive. They have daughters too. They have daughters too. Absolutely. And because certain fields have more men, obviously you should have a male mentor also. I've had many male mentors over my political life and females. And I can say that both sexes helped me get through some difficult moments in terms of my professional life. So I think it's important to reach out. And the Me Too movement has proven that. So I'm going to do a fun question for you, Sheila. What's your favorite book that you would recommend to a student who has just graduated from STEM that will inspire them?
Oh,
I'm glad she asked you that.
No,
Helen can answer
the book. I just can't remember the name.
Okay, we'll give you a moment, Sheila.
Let me describe it. Maybe someone can tell me it.
Okay.
It's about
Go ahead.
The woman, someone who basically did this long trek across this long trail, the Pacific Coast Trail, I believe. And then she rediscovered, it got turned into a movie as well, but I didn't see the movie. But anyways, I wanted to talk about that one because that particular book was about where she deconstructs herself really right down to the basics and then grows again. And I have to say a lot of my experiences really, especially going through graduate school and then coming back to medical school, you really have to let go of some of that ego, some of those things really to come back and then to open yourself to learning again and having that growth mindset. And so that particular book I felt was particularly influential and reflective of my experiences during medicine. But I wish I could tell you what the name of that book was.
It'll come to you, Sheila. It'll come to you. Helen, do you have a favorite book that you want to recommend to our participants that will inspire them?
I read so many books, but I must say I am an Obama fan and a lot of the books that he has written because it's a man that has overcome a lot of challenges and yet he showed tenacity and he showed class in how he overcame. He developed hard skin, and yet he developed that expertise, that talent, and the very diplomatic and chic way of moving along. So I think he's an inspiration. So
as is his wife, who wrote an excellent book also. Absolutely. Michelle Obama.
No doubt.
I would say we should read both. So 100%. We have until 1, I've been told now. Okay, so we can, there are a lot of questions in the chat room, again, about the boys club, the boys club. And how do you overcome, the boys club in terms of a team? Because again, there are more men than there are women still, except for medicine, like I said, and some of the sciences, where there are more women going into the fields. Some of them have chosen other routes rather than even practice medicine. Perhaps research, perhaps innovation. How do you, I think you've more or less touched upon some of the advice that you both have for dealing with certain circumstances at work, like serving coffee to your professional colleagues, because you happen to be the one woman in the room, so they ask you for the coffee. I've faced that, and I think a lot of people have faced that. But what would be one piece of advice, really, to overcome one's fears of dealing with the boys' club?
This is going to sound a bit bold with the statement that I made at the beginning, right? But there are boys' clubs because we let them be there. Right? I think the matter that we have to take into our hands, and at least I can only talk about my field, right? There will be no boys club if women take an active role in being part of that club and making sure that they show that they have the presence in that club and they're at equal footing to be part of the club. So I think, and take this a positive way, that we have an integral role to put positions ourselves. We can't always play that victim card and say, well, there's a club, so we can't. No, you can. You just have to make every effort to be part of it. I think that's our role. And we have to define where is it that gray area is when we could play, as Sheila very well said, it's safe, and say, no, we can. We just have to do it. So I think it's just make it happen. That's the short answer.
Sheila, the name of the book, I'm told in the chat, is called Wild, From Lost to Found, the Pacific Crest Trail. That's the correct one. Wow, I have to read it. I really, really have to read it. So how did you deal with the boys club? But also, I must tie it in. Sorry, Sheila. I'm going to tie it in to the stereotypes that you talked about some of your mentors and colleagues at Exford, which those stereotypes still exist in our society. Even women use those stereotypes. We use the B word, and I'm not going to repeat it here, about somebody who's strong, who's determined, who actually is motivated and goal-oriented. So please, I want to hear from you in terms of how do we deal with the boys club and the stereotypes that we have in society.
So let me give you one example that I had at Oxford, and also because this is kind of common within, I feel chemistry, but I'm not sure. But one of the things is there is this culture where after the lab, in the evenings, usually around the times when people have dinner with their families, there is this networking that happens at the local pub, and this is a common culture. The pub is where you go to. You have beer, you have, and you have a chance to discuss with your colleagues, and then you have a chance to socialize. But you also have an opportunity here in terms of your career to meet other people and, to develop collaborations even. Anyhow, the point is, and I'm not saying, whether women don't like beer, I just don't like beer.
Neither do I.
I like high tea. I am very fond of afternoon high tea. So people who wanted to discuss, network, or do anything after hours had to have high tea with me. And so I remember one particular event where I was sitting in this tiny boutique, and it was me and about 5 other male colleagues having afternoon tea with tiny sandwiches, because that was the venue that I was comfortable in and I happened to like. And so I think it's small things like this where, don't conform, don't put yourself in an environment where you're not necessarily comfortable, because that's what everybody does, because that's the way it's always been done. Make these changes, make them to work in your benefit, and, we will start to see changes like this.
Create your own social networking, in other words, right? And always create it with people who are positive and supportive, because there's a lot of negativism we know out there. So I'm going to end with another question that you probably weren't expecting. Helen, are you a dog or a cat person?
Oh, I'm 100% dog person.
Dog.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt.
I've seen your dog.
That cute little face that you hug and it hugs. Oh, I'm a dog lover, 100%. Oh, wow.
Sheila, are you a cat or a dog lover, or both?
I've had neither. I've only been allowed goldfishes and hamsters.
You're working your way up. Wait till the children start asking for the dog.
Oh, yeah.
I went through that.
Yeah, my husband's a cat person, but I'm hoping for a dog.
So I have one more question here in the chat room. I have not seen any programs or summer camps, day events to in the STEM fields. Is there any plans to implement such programs? I think that's more directed actually to
your program.
Yeah, to McGill. I remember at McGill there was many programs for my daughters actually that I took them every summer to. So I don't know if there are. Maybe we can talk about the opportunities for networking. What are the opportunities that you would see are out there besides what we just talked about in terms of young women reaching out? I mean, we know we all use social media now. We all use LinkedIn in order to be able to connect. But is there another forum? See, the McGill Women's Alumni Association provides that forum also, by the way. I want to remind the participants, we're there for you. We did institute a new mentorship program, and we do have some excellent mentors on our board and that we can also reach out to. But if is there a mentorship program that you would recommend, Helen or Sheila, to the participants today?
Very simple. If they would look at the steel industry, the Canadian Institute of Steel Construction, we have competitions, we have scholarships, we have architectural scholarship, we have encourage young engineers to become members of no cost. They join many opportunities for conferences, networking. Absolutely. They just have to get in touch with me. Definitely.
Thank you, Helen. Sheila.
I think being in, graduate school, there's multiple opportunities such as that, where there are groups, where there are subsects within each of the disciplines, where, there are often ones where graduate students with women, with female mentors who support each other. There are such. There definitely was when I was in medical school and also in graduate school as well. And I think to mention for those of you with younger kids that there are actually lots of science-oriented summer camps towards young girls, and it's a really good time to start to expose daughters to what they can do, what they can learn within the STEM fields very early on. So I would encourage those as well. In fact, our local library has one.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. I didn't realize they exist. But what can I say about our two speakers? First of all, I want to thank Sheila. Like I said, you've had a busy schedule between being a mother, a researcher, a businesswoman, and a medical doctor under the pandemic. I don't know how to thank you. A million thank you and congratulations. And we wish you continued success in what you choose to do.
Absolutely.
Helen, you and I have known each other for a long time, having the Greek connection, as I said. I have been a big fan of yours. I know that you have been a trailblazer, whether you like that word or not. You have been a trailblazer in your industry. So I thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy schedules. And I want to thank all the participants. It is my pleasure, and the time went fast. We could have done it for 3 hours, right?
And
but
Sheila inspired me, Sheila. It was such a pleasure. Honor being with you.
Same.
Thank you.
So glad.
Thank you so much. And it is my pleasure now to introduce my co-organizer for this event, and who has been a longtime member of the MWAA, Susan Sharnotsky. She's the former president of the MWAA, the McGill data librarian for 25 years. And don't forget, she was ahead of her generation in data. And she also was the manager of Art Computer Laboratory for graduate studies at McGill. So Susan, over to you. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Eleni, so much. This was really a tremendous conversation. We were sitting on the edges of our chairs, I think, to just try to get all the statements that were being made, the inspiration that was coming through from the guests and through your leadership in having the questions ready to sort of make this a wonderful, exciting conversation. And we are now just repeating a little bit ourselves to talk about the fact that we would like people to remember our anniversary scholarship fund, and there is a way to reach out to us to send it off today. You can put it in the chat, but we would also like to thank various donors to the fund. We have already raised $90,000 plus from over 300 donations. We have had a generous donation from the Montreal Council of Women, from the Desjardins Group, CAA Pratt & Whitney, and Insight Biosciences Canada. We would like to encourage those who are out there thinking that perhaps their company would like to encourage women in the STEM fields. And we believe our scholarship will be one way that will be very important. It will be in perpetuity. We hope, if we reach the goal of our $130,000 target. So please join us in supporting women to come into those fields. And we thank you very much for being here this afternoon. And we thank our speakers. We thank Eleni, and we hope you have a great day. Look at the website for all the rest of the homecoming events, and do continue to follow McGill Homecoming at home.